All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Berwick Planning Board meeting. This is a regular meeting for October 15th, 2020. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Feedback.
Hello?
Is it up here?
I need to be turned down.
Is that coming off through the TV?
This is from my mic.
You just blew through
Hello.
the eardrums.
I feel like I'm at a concert.
Hello? We're good. We're better. We're better.
So planning board members present tonight, we have the Vice Chair Nicole Fecto, we have alternate member David Ross-Lyons, we also, on our Skype call, we have here regular Michael LaRue, we also have regular Frank Underwood and alternate Jerry Grable. So tonight, David, you'll be voting again, and Jerry, you can feel free to contribute to every part of this meeting this evening, okay? Jerry, can you hear me?
Jerry, can you hear
Frank,
me?
can you hear me?
Hey guys, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting people talking, but I have no sound over here. I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't either.
It's because
Bear with us.
DCTV is still muted.
I can unmute him. I can do it. Yay.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Sorry about that. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. All right, so the members that we have present is the Vice Chair, Nicole Fecto. We have alternate David Ross-Lyons. We have Frank Underwood. We have Mike LaRue. And we have alternate Jerry Grable. So David, you'll be voting this evening. Jerry, please feel free to contribute to every part of this meeting this evening. We also have the Code Enforcement Officer, Jennifer McCabe, on Skype. And we have our Town Planner here in the audience, including a couple members of the public here. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the October 1st, 2020 meeting. There was one little thing that I saw in here. It's on the second page. It's the fourth paragraph down. It says, Dave Andreessen said the town needs to look at a plan for Old Pine Hill Road and adjoining streets. What I said was I'd like to get a copy of that traffic plan. That's what I meant.
Okay.
And yeah, so both myself and Mr. Bobwell said speed was an issue. So that was the only thing that I had
Okay.
on that. So if there's nothing else that anybody else sees, the motion would be for approval of the minutes as amended.
I move we approve the October 1st minutes as amended.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second by Mike LaRue. Frank, can you hear us? Frank, you got to come off of mute.
Unmute yourself.
No, there you go. All right, Frank.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I had one little thing, and it's more of a typo. It just says, under the approval of the September 17th meeting, Frank Underwood requested the uses identified are using. Using should be changed to uses. It's at the very on page 1. And then it says, Frank Underwood motion to approve the application. It should say Frank Underwood motion to approve the minutes.
James.
You following me?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we are, Frank. You got that, James?
I'm being Paul, it's just Frank.
No, those are very clear.
Okay?
Very clear.
So, it's clear.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All in favor? Nicole?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Okay, so that passes. All right.
I was not here, but I did watch the meeting.
How very diligent of you. Next on the agenda is an old business is a site plan review, adult use and/or medical marijuana production facility. It's off of Portland Street. It's map R72, lot 17. It's in the RCI zone, and the applicant is 3G's Realty. We have the applicant here. We also have the engineer, Neil Raposa, here. And James, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. The most significant change from last meeting is the clarification that the application and the project will fall under one license holder. And that's different from having each individual building licensed with tenants. So every building will have to be licensed by one license holder from the state, and that's a local license as well. And that was put in as a condition of approval. The other thing, one subtle change, and Frank, let me know if that, if it's works for you and works for the rest of the board. While general industrial building is not a use, industrial is a use. It's more of a shell building, if you will, at this point. And just one thing to just make sure it's clear, there's a condition number 6 that when a use is determined that the applicant has to come back to planning board for review. So I think that just clears up that we don't have a use that isn't identified in the table.
And I did follow along with that when I read the information we received. My only concern would be, if you are constructing those buildings right now, are they gonna sit there empty? Because if there's going to be since we don't have an industrial general use, he would need to come back in before he could put anybody in either one of those buildings, because they're not approved for anything. They're just a footprint on the ground with a structure sitting on it.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Can you finish your remarks?
Yep.
And then I'll just have Neil, and then I'll open it back up to Frank
Sure.
again and the
Oh, I'm
rest.
sorry I cut in. I thought we were just generally.
No, that's James's fault.
Yeah, I can be more clean about it. Yeah, so there's several conditions on the back, and then I just had some notes from the last meeting. Why the site plan changed, the buildings are closer together because DEP requested no further wetland setback. And just a further note that the project is outside the South Berwick Water District's recharge area. So I'll send it back to the chair.
All right, thank you, James. All right, Neil, welcome back.
Hey, how we doing?
All right.
Live and in person, Neil.
All right.
This is good.
We haven't seen you in person in a while.
Seriously.
Been about 9 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so as James described, very little has, and actually nothing has changed with the plan since we were last in front of the board. Now that I'm here, so I can show you in person, this portion of the development was changed, so we had no wetland disturbance, which pushed these buildings. It just pushed the development up some, still staying out of the wetland setback, and we never come closer to that wetland than that existing woods access road that's currently used for haying and was used for logging out there. So we wanted to keep it as a minimal footprint as possible. It's the same amount of square footage of buildings, slightly less impervious, and the same BMPs are being utilized to treat everything. They just shifted slightly to allow the change in the impervious area. It is still in review with DEP. They're fairly backed up there, so when it's going to come through, I believe January 1st is the date that they have to have a decision out by, but they have not given me any indication of what day they actually will have the review completed. So, and beyond that, as James indicated, the applicant will run this under the one license as discussed and requested. And I think anything else, any other questions you have, feel free to fire away.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I still have some questions. My main question is, I don't know why it would be under one license. A question is, if they are operating like a company and doing it like this, just an example, like Trican, they have the facility, they have the company, and they own the land. This is just someone renting space for a company. So if this was like an industrial park, let's just say, and someone wanted to open up a bar there and it was in the right zone, it would be allowed, just like any other thing, but then they would have to get their own licensing for their company and their alcohol and stuff like that. So I just don't know what made the flop on switching it to one license. To me, it just doesn't seem like all the other, like, it feels like this is just an exception to all the other types of coming in and.
Well, it's the
and starting
1,000
to-
feet, right? It's the 1,000-foot setback that makes it have to be one license.
But at that point, if it was all, I don't know, it's hard for me to put it, like, how could it fall under one license when there's gonna be multiple businesses that are gonna be operating under this license? Like, wouldn't this really just be an issue for the people
applicant's
coming in
problem.
and not for someone that's just developing something?
I think this is the applicant's problem, not the planning board's problem. We're
I think
just
Nicole is
We're just
correct. This is
enforcing
like
the land use ordinance.
Nicole is correct. I think this is like a landlord-tenant arrangement, wouldn't it be, Nicole?
Yeah, and if that doesn't work for their company, then that's not our problem. Our problem is that we have a 1,000-foot setback per licensee, and that's the rule. So they'll have to relook at their business model and maybe rethink how they're doing things.
It would be very interesting to find out if, in fact, the building owner can sublet that out with that license to do that.
What did the town attorney say regarding this? We
It's-
already talked about that you have to have one licensee.
Yep.
But like, for example, if you've got 12 different businesses working there under one licensee, who do the businesses work for?
It all,
For the landlord.
so I mean, it goes back to the 1,000-foot setback based off of the way it's written and based off of how adult use production is defined.
But that argument almost makes it seem like we're bending the rules to
Right,
make this
exactly.
property
To this
work.
extent, the whole issue is we decided to write it as we did to prevent things like this from happening for the short term. We decided this when we wrote this stuff and it got passed through. That's my whole, like, we have one on School Street and we wanted to prevent that from happening again right now. We wanted to make sure everything was spread out enough to where we could manage it in a small number.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to rent out those buildings. He'll have to, or somebody will have to.
Yeah, it'll all be,
Run.
it'll all be the applicant's essential, yeah, he could, it would be his employees, or he would be able to lease the space or partner with a cultivator, but the individual buildings will not be able to get licenses because they'll be 1,000 feet with each other,
Right.
within each other.
He
yeah.
can build the buildings.
Unless there's a possibility of further updating the ordinances to fit it in, but it's just gonna take time.
I started that discussion about the licensing and having one license. And then Mike was the one at the last meeting that piped up and reminded us of the 1,000-foot spacing. I'll go back to my original premise on why I was pushing for the one license, because we need to hold somebody accountable if there's a problem out there. The town doesn't need to be chasing around 10 tenants or 12 tenants, whatever it is, if there's an isolated problem in one of the buildings or one of the growers or one of the whatever they're doing.
Okay, so
Point
Frank,
was
quick
is that
question.
if the license was held by one person, the town is dealing with one entity. If there's a single building out there that's in violation, the license is called into question, and all the buildings are called into question. So it shuts everything down. So to me, it was a way to use it as a control to make sure that the tenants were operating according to the license holder, which would be one person. And any one of the 10 people out there could cause a revocation or whatever if they were not following the state rules or local rules or whatever. So that was what was behind me, and it was Mike that piped up about the 1,000-foot spacing. But I like the idea of the one license. I really
So
do.
Frank, just as like an example, let's say like if someone owned an industrial park, one building causes a disruption, and you want to shut all of them down because that one's causing a disruption.
We don't have a license. We don't have a license
We
overall.
don't. We shouldn't have a license. It should just be.
I mean, that's the whole trick behind
Well,
this marijuana thing. There's a state
Right,
license
but
and there's a local
it's
license.
based on an individual company operating under a license.
Which,
Like, that's the whole premise of this.
Then he's going to have one company.
Right, and I think that's, the applicant,
He's
heard,
okay with that.
heard the board's concerns,
Yeah.
and that's why we've shifted to this with a single
Condo
license.
Association.
Does Scott want to come on here and chime in?
And I mean, the town attorney chimed in.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yes, I'm sorry. So the plan we developed obviously met resistance regarding multiple tenants. And I understand after rereading it, talking to attorneys, and hearing your voices, why so? And that's understandable. We have then since shifted to allowing one license, well, obviously per your direction, one license. The fact that they're gonna be pressed in different buildings has nothing to do with trying to skate around it. The reason we have multiple buildings is bifurcation between grows is critical when you're growing, especially on a tier 4 license. An employee, for instance, an employee goes home, he's got a little backyard project going on, doesn't tell whomever the operator is, whether it ends up becoming us or a sub-entity or we partner with who knows, Kind Farms, Trican, any of these guys or women are possible tenants. He comes in with powdery mildew, he works in building 3. He's only gonna ruin building 3. He's not gonna destroy our entire operation and cause us a huge expense. That, and we can build it in phases. If we were to build all 12 of those, let's even say all 12 of those buildings right now and outfit the 10 to build in marijuana, I can assure you that number would be so mind-boggling, it's not possible. We can't do it. There's multi-state operators who wouldn't even do that. They would phase in Maine. So we're only looking at either partnering or renting to one entity to grow in those buildings, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
That's
you.
what, okay, that's got to be a condition of approval.
Like that there's one entity that's gonna run the whole facility, that's fine, and that was my whole argument with this.
But that was,
So,
this is almost opposing to the last, you know what, I'll just go back on mute.
All right.
but now that limits it to one entity coming in and utilizing all of those buildings.
Right.
That was
Right.
the result of that last.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
that last-
And so you'd have to
Yeah.
be
If you want
a partner with
50,000
it,
square
or,
feet For one company and have it phased, that's fine. Have different buildings, that's fine. Like, it's just, under the license, it should only cover one company. That's,
the condition I wrote is each marijuana building shall be licensed through the state, town and state by the same entity.
By
okay.
the same entity.
That's all right. I was
Okay.
wondering because
So we don't have 12 different entities
Yeah.
coming in there working underneath one license, which is Scott. That was the concern.
Yeah, absolutely not. There's
Okay.
a host of reasons why nobody should get involved in something like that. Like
Absolutely.
I just wouldn't wanna see 10 different marijuana cultivation companies coming in and then having a cluster, it's like,
The only other thing, and I would have to reread the findings and the facts and the conditions again, is that we could do, or whomever the operator is, and the semantics are so dangerous here. Whomever that operator or entity is also allowed to do extraction. Cool.
as long as it's approved by the state and it's whichever, it's in an industrial area, I wouldn't see how that would be an issue at all.
Yeah, so ABC growers, under ABC growers, they have hey, we grow in that building and we make, cool gummies in that building. But same entity.
All right, I think we can move on from that. So Neil, the only question that I had, and I'll just open it up to the rest of the board, we have an abutter here this evening. They brought up some concerns about the plan. Can you just talk about that?
the only concerns that were brought up were for the, I'm not sure if I have that, don't have the the plan that has the back lot line here, there was some.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, no, they were indicating that they thought that their property line was in a different location than what was shown on our plan. I know our survey department did a very thorough survey, that they came through and located that and located the pins indicating the corners. If there is a discrepancy, if any of the abutters want to do their own survey and come through, then our survey department would be happy to sit with them and go through it. But I'm very confident in, we had a professional surveyor stamp an existing conditions boundary plan, and I stand by their work, so.
That's a common thing to happen.
Oh, yeah, especially around here, so.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry, do you have anything?
Unmute, Jerry. Oh, there you are.
Michael brought up exactly what I had written down on this about the one license. And moving on to something else, was there some place where the height of the building was mentioned? I didn't find it.
No, I only indicated on the plan that they'd be less than the 35-foot maximum.
Okay. And then the other thing I had, based on the 10 Pond Road issues that we went through, where the odor control plan, does that address negative pressure or carbon filtration?
Yep.
Oh. Okay. That's all I had.
Thanks, Jerry. Frank?
Yeah, I'll go back to the two building thing again. When James said frankly, at the very outset, I thought he was talking to me, so I apologize. But there are going to be two buildings that are gonna be industrial, and they will be required by condition to come back before the board before use goes in there. My question is, are they going to be built? And if they're gonna be built, are they sitting there empty?
They're not gonna be built and they're not gonna be sitting there empty. Those are build the suits, you know, Bob's HVAC's looking for a warehouse for his vans, something pretty benign. We're not looking to, you know, not gonna put in, you know, nuclear water for filtration, you know, we're not looking for anything crazy. We're looking for minimal impact.
Well, then that might segue, and I'm glad that, because until you know what you're gonna have in there, you shouldn't build anything anyway. But the other part was in Neil's letter that he sent on October 5th, he talked about there will be no marijuana testing facility. And I've been hung up on our land use ordinance by going back to the table and making sure we are specific in what we are approving in a zone if it is a specific use. In our definitions under the marijuana grouping, we don't even mention the word testing.
And that's the reason that I was taken out.
Testing performance criteria in our ordinance. So the timing of your two buildings, Scott, in the future might be, we get a land use modification includes marijuana testing, and then you come back in and file under marijuana testing if that's what you so choose. But we have no marijuana testing allowed right now in our town.
I understand.
Right.
You would be doing not only the industry, but the state itself, huge service in incorporating testing facilities, because I believe there's only 2, maybe 3 in the state. And if you look at states like Massachusetts, for instance, and it could be like a kind of a COVID type effect where they had to shut them down. That's where the hangup is with the growth for the industry across the state. Is a backlog at these testing facilities. There's a couple, I know very little, but what I do know, there's like one machine that takes 4 hours to do a test and another machine that takes 6. And they're from 60 to 200 and something thousand per machine. So besides the zoning, the permitting, the approvals, the actual cash outlay and the return thereof, there's a gap. And obviously I'm here hat in hand asking for something. I'm just offering some insight to the industry. You guys and girls and ladies may already know, but if you were to, it wouldn't be directly beneficial to me and or the town itself, but the industry and ultimately the state.
We are a town form of government, so the only way we can add something like that is through a town meeting vote to amend the land use ordinance. I think, James, we were gonna do something in January here, if I read the selectmen's notes the other day correctly, but we're probably too late to put something like that in.
Yeah, we're just, Frank, we're getting in sticky waters here with, you
Well, no,
know,
we're not, I'm just heading this thing off, because if he is suggesting that, and that's something we wanna consider, we don't wanna miss an opportunity if we think we want to have that allowed in here, to put it into our land use ordinance by warrant article or to amend the land use ordinance.
So friends, just to kind of add to what you're talking about, the state does have some requirements, and one thing for a testing facility is they cannot hold any other licensing for marijuana. So if they can't have a cultivation facility or a storefront, it has to be a whole different company that comes in and gets licensed.
Yeah, but we got two, it could be on the same site, we got two empty buildings.
It could, as long as the company isn't owned by the same person.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's that Rico's to stuff. That's stuff you look through metal bars for a long time.
So I've been looking at testing facilities for a while, and just for simplicity's sake, we rolled everything into this thing called marijuana establishments, just because there's so many variations of marijuana things.
why don't we talk about this during informational items?
Okay, sure.
I think we really should. I think we should stick to the application. I think we're getting off on a tangent. I'm
I
sorry.
only brought it up because it was in Neil's letter.
Okay, no, absolutely, and that's something that we should talk about. Absolutely, Frank. But you know, we have the application right now that we should look at. So, Frank, do you have anything else for Neil?
No, that's all I have, Dave.
Okay, David.
Just one question on fencing and security. I'm assuming buildings 11 and 12 will be outside of the securities.
Correct, yep,
Okay.
it's gonna be that security fence we have shown is gonna sneak by the front here, so that fencing will go right along the front side of that building.
Okay.
And have those just outside the security for the rest of the production facilities.
Okay, that was my big one. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, Nicole.
The only thing I have is a question for James, maybe. On number 6 in the conditions, so it's again about these two buildings, because we're so thorough, and it says the applicant shall come back to the planning board for further review. Could we just clarify that a little bit more? Because we don't want
Conditional
to,
use,
for a conditional use, yeah.
Definitely.
Say that
Thanks.
again, Nicole. Number 6.
Just cross out further review and put conditional use in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, then next.
I got a quick question.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
Is there any plan on turning one of those buildings into a storefront?
We had not, however, if you want us to, I would be happy to, but our initial plan was just to come up with basically, like you said, a business park where cannabis is grown and then distributed across the state. You seem to have a fair amount of stores. I don't want to inherit.
I was just curious because you guys are within distance, like within buffer distance from the other people, so.
I think your stores are full, all your applications, the amount that were allotted, I think that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, Jane?
Yeah.
Ian's nodding. Very small icon at the bottom, but I don't even think we're available. If you want to throw one our ways, but best to slap you in the face and say no.
Well, because we're supposed to be talking about it annually on the permits and everything, so if you do have a thought of it, you should speak in these meetings.
Yeah, I think your stores are probably, you probably got the, a good amount of stores. I personally, I mean, I'm not really interested in retail and that many people there. I'd rather keep it industrial, just that limited amount of people, lots of trees, can't see it, quiet, out of the way, something to that kind of feel. You get Tri-Can across the street, I'm hoping Tri-Can comes over and literally, like, I'll take it all. And they just have a nice little business right there, simple, clean. Nothing, nothing crazy. It's like, we all want all of these guys to succeed, and overburdening stores, price wars and so on, it doesn't do anyone any good. Look what it's done to the, retail clothing business. Amazon's, people buying clothes off Amazon. I would have never imagined it.
So no storefronts.
Okay, so the next step ahead would be to approve the findings of fact. There was one waiver that was approved when we found the application complete. It was 9-8.f.2.b.i. Map of scale of not less than 1 inch to 40 feet. The plan is set in 1 inch to 60 feet. That was a waiver that was approved. So looking for a motion to, if there's no further questions from any board members, looking for a motion to approve the findings of fact.
Whoa. I will move that we approve the findings of fact for the adult use and/or medical marijuana production facility off Portland Street.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by David Ross Lyons. He beat you to it, Frank. Okay, for,
Time lag here, the little time delay.
there is, a couple milliseconds.
The mute button.
Yeah.
It's the mute button, Frank.
Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Nicole?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so moving on to conditions of approval. I'll read these conditions of approval into the record. So the first condition of approval, number 1, a water sample shall be tested for priority pollutants and nutrients before any cultivation wastewater is discharged to a holding tank and then tested annually or at a time that is pumped thereafter. Holding tank pump records and testing results shall be provided to the Community Development and Planning Office and provided to the facility where the wastewater will be treated. Number 2, if an odor violation is determined by the code enforcement officer, the applicant shall resolve the issue within 5 days. The code enforcement officer may revoke the certificate of occupancy if the odor issues are not resolved within 5 days. Number 3, if well water or groundwater is contaminated with nitrates or other byproducts as a result of production beyond safe concentrations, the cost to remediate the nitrates or other contamination levels shall be the applicant's property owner's expense. Number 4, all pesticides and chemicals stored on site shall have a secondary containment. Number 5, dumpsters shall remain locked at all times. Number 6, when a use is determined for the 2 industrial buildings, the applicant shall come back to the planning board for conditional use. Number 7, each marijuana building shall be licensed through the town and state by the same entity. So looking for a motion to approve the conditions of approval.
I move that we approve the conditions of approval for the adult use medical marijuana production facility off Portland Street.
Second.
Seconded by David Ross Lyons. Further discussion? Okay, roll call. Nicole?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so next, finally, we'll be approving the application.
Look for the 3 feet, Nicole.
I was hoping DRL was going to.
I was letting you keep it going.
I move that we approve the conditional use for the adult use medical marijuana production facility off Portland Street.
Got the hat trick. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. Further discussion? Okay, roll call. Nicole?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so that is it. One thing on the findings of fact, it said here, I, David Andreessen, certified that I am acting chair of the planning board. Just a small typo.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I acting?
Am I acting?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know. Are
Thank you,
you?
Neil, and thank you, Scott.
It was for when Nicole was the acting chair. I just copy and paste a lot.
You bring a media voice to the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What's the weather going to be?
Next on the agenda is public comment session. It's open to any resident or, actually, you know what, James?
We still haven't put the first public comment session
forgot
back
the first
into the
public
meeting.
comment session of the meeting. My bad, too, for not noticing
It was
that.
last meeting.
You had it last meeting?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We usually have 2.
But we took it out for that one.
Next on the agenda is the public comment session. It's open to any resident or property owner in the town of Berwick to come forward. Please just state your name and address for the record. And for our viewers at home, we're a very highly rated Thursday night show here in Berwick.
I keep hearing about all these things.
Could you
that
state your name
approved.
and address, sir?
Okay, my name is Richard Harris. I live at 26 Stone Lane. I'm a property owner that owns right behind this. Probably most of it. I'm worried about what water runoff is going to be on this for salt and everything, because there is a swamp back there. And I don't know whether the swamp's on my property or somebody else's. Don't know. Don't know the answer to that. But I do know that I don't want any of their runoff on my property at all. And I didn't hear where you guys talked about that. So we're worried about also about this, the parking lots that they're talking about putting in and how they're gonna get the salt and the stuff out there. I thought that was part of a water refuge, because if you look at it on the town maps, it shows as an estuary back there. And at one point, I know that one of my neighbors explained to me that there was a beaver dam built back there, and the state came in and blew it up and killed the beavers because they were blocking the water from leaving there. So have you guys looked at any of that stuff? Or is that?
And the DEP
that's
and the
DEP
DEP
review,
application.
yeah.
This was approved by the state of Maine DEP as well.
I never got notified on that.
I don't know,
Is
do
there
they notify
notifications that go
abutters
out? I
for
mean,
DEP?
You have a copy of the DEP approval, I mean, that you can share.
Yeah,
Well, they're waiting on the approval.
yeah,
still.
they need a
Yeah.
site plan, it's a very high-level site location permit.
So the DEP looks at all of that.
And, I mean, if there are, in our ordinance, they're not allowed to negatively affect and put water on your property. I mean, at that point, they're not only looking at like site plan violations, but that's, our code enforcement violations as well. And I know you've gone through this before, but, I can't speak for what Freeport did.
I'm not talking about, well, I worked for Fairchild when I was younger.
I don't think, well, hold on a sec, go ahead and finish, sir.
So I worked for Fairchild when I was younger. And one of the problems that they ran into is there was actually people dumping water onto their site as well as them dumping it onto other people's. And it came back that they can't do it. Period. It's not a local ordinance, it's a state ordinance.
Right, and all the water that's so any impervious surface cannot be adversely affecting
That was
your
one of
property.
the things you talked about, pumping and getting rid of effluents.
That are produced on site.
That's produced on site.
Yeah.
Scott, I'll give you an opportunity in public comment session here after this. James, can you explain that? The pumping, the holding tank?
So any wastewater that's in the building is being captured, and they're pumping it out. They're pumping it, like moving it from the site, as in it's not
They're trucking.
going
it
into
out.
the ground. They could truck it
They're
out.
trucking it out, yeah.
Okay.
So it's the rainwater, that's the rainwater, snow, that's the stuff that's not getting
Yeah,
captured.
and they're creating buildings, so they're creating, hard where the water isn't coming through, but they're creating ponds that's being captured. I think there's,
Yeah.
Now, are the ponds going to drain, where are the ponds going to drain to is my question.
This is a Neil and DEP question.
I can take a stab at
I think-
addressing the ponds. I don't know if Neil has left or if he was just circling back over.
Dennis here.
He's kind of hiding in the back.
If it's the pleasure of the board, I can answer the question.
Sure, I mean, we're totally like breaking format and not staying on point, but go ahead, Neil.
So this is more of a general response to any project like this. What we try to do is we take the stormwater, we do a study and see what the stormwater is doing before there's any development. And then we build our model with our impervious area and our buildings and our pavement. And then we have to build a second model that shows that the ponds and the basins and the filters that we're putting in reduce all that flow down to the same levels that it was before the development happened.
Sorry about that. I didn't know I had the phone on, just shut it off. Sorry about that.
So, yep, so that's And that's what the big, the Department of Environmental Protection, that's what the permit we get from them addresses all of that. So they take into account the quality of the water coming off the site, as far as, the turbidity, the sediments, the heavy metals, all that stuff, and the quantity of water coming off the site for anything that's going into the wetlands that receive it. So it tries to mimic, the pre-development condition.
Part of the wetlands are on my land. I don't want 'em- I don't want your water runoff.
And
I got
that's,
enough in there already.
that's why we have to go through the full, it's a very, very thorough process to review it.
But that's why we're talking about, I was expecting to have you guys get some comments because there wasn't anything finished in the last time, and then you did the comments after you approved this thing. I'm very disappointed in that.
Well, we had a
We had a
public
comment session.
hearing. Yeah, we had a
If you have
public
anything
hearing.
else, please come to the podium. We had a public hearing.
And we did have the
Right.
public information meeting for the DEP permitting as well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they required us to do that. Everyone was notified on that one.
No, they weren't. We didn't get any notification at all on any DEP stuff. None. And we're in a butter. And the other thing too is, like we talked about this last time, we talked about some of this stuff the last time about this, and some of those questions never got answered today. So I don't see where your public comments work.
If it's a DEP regulation, our job isn't to build infiltration and engineer these things. Our job is to look at the land use ordinance.
How far,
But
you
that's
have a
it, that's-
1,000-foot setback. How far is the setback from my property?
1,000-foot setback from other medical marijuana licenses.
Okay, I didn't understand that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
But I'm sure Neil might have a contact at the DEP. These are very technical questions that are not planning board. I mean, we're not engineers, we're volunteers. I can't guarantee there's not gonna be a drop of salt water on your property from theirs, but the DEP can, that's their job.
See, because we had a similar type problem when they put the cement plant that's next to us.
Right.
And they just started dumping the water across the street right into an area that was
Oh, we know.
next to us.
We know. And has that problem been fixed?
I don't know. It's been so dry, I can't tell.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope, maybe that's the reason why, but we had to have the DEP come back out, and they shut down operations because of that.
And like I think I told you the last time, I know that the state was looking at the 50 acres that's behind us that is enclosed as putting in some kind of an animal reserve.
Right.
Because they had approached me and said, they asked me if I'd be willing to sell them any land. And I told them I wasn't interested. I don't want anybody any closer, thank you. That's why I moved out of Freeport.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else for public comment session? Okay, seeing nobody come forward, we'll close the public comment session, moving on to informational items. Anything from staff?
Just on licensing, so marijuana licensing, it's pretty high business, personal property. It's a fairly benign use. And initially, just for ease of use with cultivation, processing, medical, adult use, et cetera, it's all wrapped into marijuana establishments. Probably take a look at amendments for June, and marijuana testing probably should be closer to actually like any other lab. So that's something that we can look at and be able to amend that and kind of separate it out where it's not part of the limit, it's not part of the 1,000-foot setback. So that's the only piece, closes the loop on the testing facilities question.
But we're too late for January, we gotta go with June.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're way too
Yep.
late for January, yeah.
Anybody else on the board?
The only thing I would say is if you get a chance to look at the edge presentation Great Falls did the other evening, they do have a concept plan. They do a good job going through identifying how they've tried to fit some of the things into it. They identify their timeline of coming before the planning board in the colder months, meaning December through February. So I'm sure everybody saw it.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it, but make sure you get caught up on that, please.
Yep, absolutely. Anybody else? All right. Seeing nobody else, next on the agenda is the adjournment. Oh, before that, I'm sorry, before that, no. I just want to say that
Frank, did you see that?
we currently have an opening on the planning board, so if anybody who's watching at home or listening, or if anybody knows of anybody who would be interested in spending 2 great Thursdays every month here with us, solving the town's problems, please get in
Maybe-
touch with the town planner, James Bellissimo.
Maybe some of you on Facebook that are keyboard warriors want to come out and face the public.
Yeah, I just want Sean Winston, he's been a planning board member for several years. He's been a joy to spend Thursday nights with, and wish him the best.
Yep. Thank you, Sean, if you're listening. We appreciate you stepping
Sure,
forward.
he's not.
Thank you, Sean.
Next is the adjournment.
Since David Ross stole my second, I'm going to steal his adjournment. So
It's actually not my adjournment anymore.
Jerry's adjournment now.
Jerry, would you like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Frank?
Second.
Seconded by Mike. All in favor? All in favor? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And ladies, good night.